After 60, who are you without the life you built? Buddhist wisdom. For years, there was a habit. Your hand knew before your mind did. The phone would ring, and before you had even looked at who it was, your hand was already moving toward it. Somewhere inside that motion, a quiet belief had settled in. That being reached for and being you were the same thing. It never showed up on the busy days, not when the phone actually rang, not when someone actually needed something fixed, or watched, or solved, or held. It showed up on a much quieter afternoon, the kind where the phone sits exactly where you left it. And your hand still drifts toward it anyway, out of a habit that 50 years didn't leave enough time to unlearn. It's not that you were wrong to answer all those years. It's that somewhere along the way, being needed quietly became the only proof that you were here at all. Can decades of being useful slowly become the entire evidence a person collects that they exist? And for someone whose days are already heavy with loneliness or grief or simply too much silence, to sit inside comfortably, is it even fair to ask, what's underneath that? There's a phone on a kitchen counter somewhere right now. It hasn't rung in 3 days. A hand still glances toward it anyway. Out of habit toward nothing. Before we go further, notice honestly whether being needed for something has quietly become the way you answer, even to yourself, the question of who you are. There's a particular kind of afternoon that doesn't announce itself. It just arrives, usually long after the busy years are behind you, and it asks a question nobody prepared you for. Someone spent more than 40 years being the person people called when the furnace stopped working, or the pipe under the sink started leaking, or the porch light kept flickering, for no reason anyone could find. In the garage, a pegboard holds tools, in the exact outline someone traced around them years ago, so a hand could find the right one without needing to look. For decades, the phone would ring, and something in them straightened before they had even picked it up. There was always somewhere to go, something that needed their hand specifically, and no one else's. Now the coffee sits in its cup, going lukewarm. Breakfast is finished. The phone sits on the counter, exactly where it was left the night before. The hand moves toward it anyway. An old current still running through it, the way a muscle keeps remembering a motion, long after the reason for it is gone. Nothing is there, no one is calling. The hand seems to know this, halfway through the motion, and keeps going anyway the way it always has, the way it probably will tomorrow too. But maybe the hard part was never the silence itself. Maybe it was something underneath the silence that didn't have a name yet. At a small gathering down the street, someone who spent 3 decades organizing a household around other people's needs stands near the food table, holding a paper plate they aren't really eating from. A neighbor asks, kindly enough, what they've been doing with themselves these days. The pause that follows lasts far longer than the question deserves, surprising them more than the question does. For years, that question had never needed an answer. It had simply been lived, morning after morning, without anyone ever having to put it into words. Now the words won't come, and there's nothing obviously wrong, and still, something in them goes quiet, in a way they don't quite recognize. Most of us try to solve this by getting busy again, a new project, a new commitment, a new reason for the phone to ring or the calendar to fill. And for a while it helps. The hand has somewhere to go again. The days regain their old shape, and the quiet backs off, just enough to be forgotten. But the same quiet returns, The moment the new busyness runs out, because it was never really about the busyness in the first place. It was only ever borrowing time from the same question. Others go the opposite direction and decide the feeling itself is simply what getting older means, something to be endured quietly and mentioned to no one. There's something honest in that. But quietly enduring a feeling isn't the same as actually looking at it. What's being pointed to here is something neither the new busyness nor the quiet endurance ever quite reaches. It isn't a replacement role at all. It's worth noticing, too, if the search quietly turns spiritual. If the goal becomes finding the calm, wise, finally at peace version of yourself, who has all of this figured out. That's still the same reaching, just wearing a gentler face, dressed in better words. Maybe the ache was never really about the phone falling silent. Maybe it was about mistaking the reaching for a reacher that was never actually there to begin with. The role answered the phone for 50 years. It was useful and true and worth having lived. But underneath the reaching, there was only ever the reaching itself, nothing standing behind it, waiting to be found. There may be a specific way you've introduced yourself to strangers for years, a job, a role, a title that has quietly stood in for the whole answer to who you are. Notice right now if that's true for you. For the next few seconds, without changing anything about how you're sitting, notice the weight of your own body against whatever is holding it up. That noticing didn't need a job title to happen. It was already going on before you read this sentence, and it will keep going on after it. That phone on the counter, the one that hasn't rung in 3 days. It was never actually as empty as it looked. There was still a kitchen around it, still a hand that knew where it was, still this exact moment happening on its own, needing no call to make it real. None of that ever depended on the phone ringing or not ringing. There's a version of this that doesn't require sitting cross-legged anywhere or changing a single thing about your day. The next time you catch yourself introducing who you are through what you did or what you're needed for, there's nothing to correct in that. Just notice the half second right before the words come out. The pause before the job title, the pause before the role. That's all, nothing to fix there, only something to notice. Maybe it happens with a hand, halfway toward a phone that isn't going to ring. Maybe it happens standing near a food table, holding a plate you're not really eating from. Either way, the noticing doesn't ask for a resume first. It was never checking anyone's qualifications to begin with. And somewhere inside that noticing, something quieter than any job title ever managed to be. There's something that tends to happen after that noticing, something that doesn't quite have a name yet either. It isn't relief exactly. It's closer to a kind of room opening up in a place that used to feel entirely full. The refrigerator still hums in the kitchen, the same low sound it always made. Somewhere down the street, a radio is still playing, the same ordinary afternoon continuing on without needing anyone to run it. None of that ever needed managing either. The phone on the counter may never ring again the way it used to. That's all right. It was never really the thing keeping you here. The furnace still gets fixed by someone. The household still runs in its own way without needing to be organized by the same hands. Life goes on managing itself, the way it always quietly has, long after any one person stops being the one who managed it. In the garage, the pegboard still holds the outline of every tool, even the ones that have since been sold or given away. The outline stays The tool doesn't have to. Maybe that's closer to how it works with a person too. The shape a life once traced around itself can stay perfectly clear long after the thing that made the shape has moved on to something else. Down the street, the one who stood by the food table still gets asked, now and then, what they do with their days. The pause still comes sometimes. It doesn't need to be filled quite so quickly anymore. They've noticed that the pause itself doesn't hurt the way it first did. It's just a pause, a small quiet gap where an answer used to rush in automatically and now sometimes simply doesn't. Nothing about them is missing in that gap. If anything, it's the one part of the conversation where they're most fully there. There is a hearing happening right now in this kitchen, whether or not anyone calls. Not as someone who hears. Just the hearing itself, complete, needing nothing to arrive first. The furnace, the porch light, the paper plate, the pause in a small, ordinary conversation. None of it was ever the proof. It was only ever the noise, the proof like to hide inside. That's worth sitting with, longer than a single video allows. If something here opened a door, there's more on this channel and it goes deeper.